Hello everyone, I'm Alex Jampop, and yes, I choose to dress like a libertarian who lives off food stamps. Welcome to The Actual News, the #1 news show on gas station television.
Mary and Joseph.
Most American citizens have now been locked in their homes for 3 months by the government without proper financial aid from the government, so people are mad at the government. Imagine that. At the time of this recording, riots have broken out in New York, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas, and Houston, with rumblings that someone may try to burn down the White House. 50% of Americans see this as disgusting, reprehensible, and unacceptable, unless it had been done in 2008 or 2012. Many of these riots broke out after the killing of George Floyd, who was blatantly murdered on camera by police, and some people are still defending the cop. That's the joke. It's terrible when looting happens. Something profoundly wrong and tragic has occurred, and some guy is like, and that's why I'm stealing these throw pillows from Target. It's just the reality of the world that we live in. And you know what? Yeah. Amy Cooper used the politically correct term African American to describe Christian Cooper as she tried to call a death squad in to have him killed. That's like hiring a hitman and describing the person they're killing as very handsome. Jeffrey Epstein's back in the zeitgeist with a new documentary, Filthy Rich, coming out on Netflix. Details include his lawyer saying that he was upbeat in his final days. Upbeat, beat up, tomato, tomato, pedophile, ephebophile. Don't look it up. Governor Cuomo of New York signed an executive order for shop owners to kick people out who don't have masks, aka the pants of the face. At least you have an excuse for if your orthodontist is giving you crap about your teeth. It doesn't matter anymore. No one will ever see them. I don't even take my mask off till the third date. Trump has called for a travel ban to and from Brazil, and already the local landing strips are completely overgrown. It's actually kind of sad to see Bolsonaro so utterly rebuffed by Trump after basically trying to be the him of Brazil. It's some real Michael Dwight energy. I don't know the Office references, but people like them. You ever see a post about vaccines or 5G and think, what a dumbass, why can't he be smart, handsome, and humble like me? One reason is that for many Americans, the person telling them climate change exists or that immigrants pay taxes is the same person who also told them,
I think this is going to be really the beginning of the end of Donald Trump.
It is likely to be the beginning of the end of Donald Trump sitting atop the GOP field.
You wrote that this is the beginning of the end for Donald Trump. There's just no way to win if you over half the population doesn't support you.
Talk about the biggest loser. Isn't that a show on NBC? He could end up being the biggest loser.
There's a possibility, Nancy, that he could win.
No, he's not going to win.
It's impossible.
He's not going to win. He is not going to win. Don't worry about that.
And what does the Moody's study or model suggest?
Well, it's very good news if you're in the Hillary Clinton camp. So not only are they forecasting a Hillary Clinton win, they're forecasting a pretty big blowout.
When people see enough of your mistakes, they stop liking you. It's why therapy's confidential. And election predictions will always be mistaken because knowing a lot about politics leads to preferring certain outcomes, destroying any potential objectivity. That's why pro sportscasters are less accurate than a coin flip, and why hedge fund managers can't outperform the S&P 500 average USA Today. These last months, media figures did the right thing and told people to wear masks, social distance, and self-quarantine. More Americans would have listened if they hadn't spent 2 years arguing that Hillary Clinton is likable. That's one of those things I like to call an incorrect opinion. Also, wouldn't picking Warren be a symbolic gesture to the left? Maybe, but the left doesn't want symbolism right now, and that's pretty much all Warren's good for. She's progressive enough to support single payer, but establishment enough to lie about resulting taxes. Feminist enough to call out private conversations, establishment enough to endorse an accused rapist. Elizabeth Warren is the sex you get instead of companionship. It feels good at first, but it won't fix a full-scale depression. Biden doesn't need a lieutenant, he needs a successor because it super feels like he's gonna die soon. Me Too people don't want to picture Biden pushed to the left, they want to picture him pushed out of power completely. If he can give a slight teensy little hint that he's planning to resign after beating Trump or invoke the 25th Amendment by revealing his condition, folks just might hope to dare again. Might dare to hope again. Sorry, very high. Although we've referenced Tara Reid a bit on the show, we've mostly avoided women's issues because, as you may have guessed, it's mostly men writing the show. I understand that mansplaining feminism is like being an obese personal trainer who's very fat. That's redundant. Alright, go up. I understand that mansplaining feminism is like being an obese personal trainer. We're not the best for this job, but we're trying and want others to try too. Regardless, today we're going to discuss the way American media uses women's issues the way it uses most issues to divide the public. Per the playbook they've used during the COVID-19 pandemic by pitting stay-inners, blue team, against the go-outers, red team, the mask owners, blue team, against the fuck-it, mask-offers, red team, and the virus is real team against some guy you worked at Subway with who watched too many YouTube documentaries. The Me Too movement was a large cultural shift that was started in 2008 by Tarana Burke and then popularized by #MeToo with Alyssa Milano, who later changed her position to #MeToo with that said vote blue no matter who. The point of Me Too, as described by Burke and later others, is to empower women through empathy and solidarity through strength in numbers, by visibly demonstrating how many women have survived sexual assault and harassment, especially in the workplace. It's pretty prevalent if you look at the statistics. They're just like, listen to any woman speak about their experience being alive. Like, if you're a guy who argues against it, you are at best the type of dude who thinks a surprise shoulder rub is a compliment, and at worst, former frequent flyer of the Lolita Express. A survey taken by NPR showed 81% of women saying they experienced sexual harassment at work. The statistics should probably be more baffling, but so much of sexual harassment is dismissed as "that doesn't sound like him" or "that's Craig, we golf together, he's not into getting pussy." With 81% saying they've experienced sexual assault, it should also be baffling that only 54% report it, which is in itself a baffling number because it's not like zero or at least close to zero, it's 54%. That's more than half. That means most men will sexually harass a I couldn't even pretend to be shocked. That's kind of the thing. It's so deeply entrenched in our society that some level of sexual harassment is so normal in these women's lives that these statistics often get dismissed as mostly cases that were either fake or not a big deal. And sure, outright false accusations do happen, such as Judy Monroe Layton, who admitted to falsifying a letter written in which she said Brett Kavanaugh and a friend sexually assaulted and raped her in her car, not to be confused with Kavanaugh's other accuser, Christine Blasey Ford, whose account was widely believed by many except that same guy you worked at Subway with who watches too many YouTube documentaries. Is this technically a YouTube documentary? Sexual assault is an issue that's polarized between men and women or split into two teams, with women can accuse anyone and you have to believe them versus they're all being dramatic and making it up, without presenting, if we want to start being fair about this, our initial reaction to the reporting of sexual assault shouldn't be doubt anymore because we know, more often than not, it happens. However, obviously, every situation is different and everyone deserves for the actual truth to come out regardless of gender. Too much nuance for the people who are telling you how to live your lives. There's also a generational divide in terms of what qualifies as sexual assault, with most people having a subjective definition of it. To me, sexual assault is anytime someone is sexually violated when they don't want to be, or when I receive a promotional email that doesn't have an unsubscribe button. Believe women is a phrase with clearly good intention that means to give women the benefit of the doubt, because statistically you should, which gets misrepresented as you have to believe women. That's what these communist feminists want to do. They want to make us all men slaves. Med slaves, and every night they make us all sleep in one big bed. The big man bed would actually be nice for a lot of guys. It would help them. While believe all women is a powerful statement brought about by centuries of being treated as subhuman, it's probably more effective to just say, accuse all lax bros. Me Too almost immediately began being weaponized within politics even prior to the hashtag, with Donald Trump's Grab Her by the Pussy tape from 2016 being released, and then him immediately inviting Bill Clinton's rape accusers to the debate, proving once and for all that sexual assault is a bipartisan policy. While Me Too was almost immediately used as a divisive weapon, with pro-stories coming from left-wing media and anti-Me Too stories coming from right-wing media, it began to have true political ramifications while Brett Kavanaugh was being sworn in as a Supreme Court justice. He was accused of attempting to rape Dr. Blasey Ford when they were in high school and responded by weirdly describing a day where he didn't try to rape anyone.
I also was in D.C. on Saturday night, August 7th, but I was at a small gathering at Becky's house in Rockville with Matt, Denise, Lori, and Jenny.
As if to say, how could I have raped on Tuesday if I was seen not raping on Friday? Christine Blasey Ford, who initially tried to do everything in her power to remain anonymous, was essentially forced out and then accused of some variant of just wants a 15 minutes of fame or a book deal by, you guessed it, Subway guy. Oh, I already said that. The media's treatment of people in this position, especially with something as important as a Supreme Court nomination, is brutal. Single details of people's entire lives can be used to personify them entirely and paint them as trustworthy, untrustworthy, crazy, reckless, when in fact maybe they just did drugs and robbed a liquor store one time in 1982. And twice in 2013. Tara Reade's now in the same position, looked at and questioned from every angle by both sides of the aisle in an attempt to gain political leverage. And while there's no security footage of people like Blasey Ford's incidents, you could also consider that these particular situations aren't trials, they're job interviews. It's not supposed to be if he's innocent, he automatically gets the job. These are the highest positions in a country that at least pretends to be democratic, and therefore we're supposed to choose our leaders. So can we get someone who just hasn't been accused of rape? Like a woman? Or even just a guy who you know couldn't do it? To me, that's the biggest factor. The media will trick both sides into arguing whether someone is completely guilty or completely innocent, in turn avoiding us asking the question, no matter who I am, would I rather have someone in power who may have done something like this, or someone who probably didn't do something like this? We'll see how Biden's allegations pan out. To be fair, the last guy still won, and
you know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the you can do anything.
So I guess it's going to be that versus this. By the way, here's a list of people who the Democrats could run if they actually wanted to win. Well, folks, that's our first season. I thank you so much for joining us and trying to make a little sense out of a very complicated world. Audit the Fed, Black Lives Matter. Good night. Wait, one more thing. Most people seem to be accepting that George Floyd's murder was not only wrong but barbaric, with a few people who think that a guy using a fake $20 bill deserved to die, which is ironic because basically anyone who thinks that is also running an illegal moonshine operation out of their basement. Well, if that man didn't want to get shot in the face, he should have never illegally downloaded music. Hello there, I'm Alex Jampapa, and admittedly this was a bad time to get my hair cut really short on the sides. I've been vacationing at my villa in, give me an expensive sounding place. I've been vacationing at my villa on Little St. James. Then we decided to push back the release of the season finale with the breakout of the protests. We wanted to do a segment about it, but realized we were probably too white, most of the writers are white guys, to have good perspective on this particular issue. We broiled up a couple of unwashed, unseasoned chicken breasts to talk it over, and decided to bring in fellow comic and friend of the show, Jason Cordova. So, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone else,
I'm Jason Cordova, and welcome to the Blacksville News. For anybody that says all lives matter, it'd be like if you caught a STD, you went to the doctor, like, Doc, my dick's burning, dirt, I need help. Doc's like, hold on, wait a second, man. All dicks matter. You're gonna have to wait in line until it's your turn. Hey man, don't you think my dick hurts sometime? Won't you work harder so your dick doesn't have to hurt like this? And then you won't have to be bugging me about fixing your dick. So some of these cops are killing people and they're getting paid to leave. That doesn't make sense to me. So this means that a cop whose vacation time could get denied, all he has to do is kill a black dude to get a vacation. Are you shitting me right now? The general attitude of modern white people towards black people isn't just, I hate black people. It's more like, black people's been given an equal opportunity since slavery. They just haven't done nothing with it. You know what I mean? Like, they just need to work harder. That's not the truth. They haven't been given an equal shot. After slavery, sharecroppers are supposed to split the profits with black people 50-50. They take their 50, we take our 50. It really should have been 100, but we're not going to cover that. But most times, their 50% will go down to 5%. That's like if somebody's supposed to give you $50 and they only gave you $5. Have you ever tried to buy a $50 bag of weed? With $5, it don't happen. You can't stretch it like that. And $5, you can't do nothing with $5. Like, that's not even gas money today. Back then, that wouldn't even be horse money. You can't feed your horse with $5. When the country was being rebuilt after the Great Depression with the New Deal, it excluded black people from its benefits. Basically, that means not only were black people slaves, but they weren't even helped to pull out of the Depression. That would be like when Jordan left the Bulls for that 1 year and Scottie Pippen was the man and everybody thought he was going to win the whole ship in 1 year. Like, we need some rebuilding. We need time to establish this team and we need time to rebuild. God damn it. At least get 2 seasons. We didn't even get 2 seasons. We didn't even get a half a season. Jesus Christ. Even Friends had 10 seasons. When President Roosevelt signed Social Security into law, 65% of the black people in the North weren't eligible and 80% in the South. You know how people always talk about how, like, their grandfather, he worked every day to like 75 to 80 and he didn't complain? He couldn't retire because he was broke. He had no money. They wouldn't give him the money that they said that they were saving up for him. They just didn't want to give it to him. And they didn't have a reason. They just said, we're not giving it to you. As suburbs were set up, Federal Housing Administration would practice redlining, which were designated areas, black people, undesirable and lessening their value strictly just because they were black. So that means if a black person lived in your neighborhood, it would lower your property value down just for being black. Like, white people were looking at black people, how black people look, like if there's a white guy with a bomb shelter in our neighborhood, like we did, like that, we don't trust that. And that was literally what they used to do. They would ask you, they would rather have a pedophile in your neighborhood than a black person. Like, they would rather you have a pedophile than a black person in your neighborhood. This set of black communities with no foundation. I mean, like, nothing. For example, an average white person making $30K would feel comfortable living in a community where a black person would probably have to make at least $100K just because of safety nets. You know what I mean? Because they know they wasn't going to let these white people fail. You know what I mean? They can ask somebody, they can ask their uncle, they can ask somebody, or if they really need to ask, they can ask America, because that was their safety net. So this shit pretty much incentivized white flight. What is white flight? It's white people who's like, I'm not racist, but these niggas is fucking up my money right now. And I don't let no niggas fuck with my money. Not any niggas, especially real niggas, fucking with my money.
And I agree, just only with words I can say. Setting up a financially unbalanced system for black people while calling it freedom has resulted in not only the hardships of poverty, but the stress of thinking that their suffering is entirely their fault. On top of normal racism, the government has also created socially engineered diet racism for many white families because when they were first setting up our communities, we were essentially given a cash incentive to treat black people in a different and worse way. And because the foundation of America is so uneven, it should be no surprise that this country couldn't build much on top of it without crashing. Poor people, regardless of color, are more likely to commit crimes because it becomes more integral to their survival. Black people, because of the system set up to intentionally defraud them, ended up living in poorer communities. This drives more police interaction toward black people, and the more police interaction you have, the higher likelihood there is that something is going to go wrong. There's a lot of confusing data when it comes to this issue, and also perhaps a lack of data, but I should hope that any human being with a beating heart sees that this
He is bleeding! He's out of his ear! He's bleeding out of his ear! He's bleeding out of his ear! He's bleeding out of his ear! Get him medic! What the fuck you walking up on here?
This and this.
What's something that you always carry with you?
Hot sauce.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Are you getting information right now?
Hot sauce.
Hot sauce in my bag, Swag?
Hot sauce.
Really?
Yes.
Now listen, I
yes.
just want you to know, people are going to see this and say, okay, she's pandering to black people.
Okay. Is it working?
Are wrong. And if you're not concerned with the racial aspect of police brutality, know that with the way the money's been moved around with the recent stimulus bills, a bipartisan screwing of 99% of the American people, the US is at least attempting to create a larger underclass. This is likely because they're being threatened as a world power and know that they have a better chance during global warfare if they're able to control their citizens. It couldn't be. That might sound crazy to you, but a few months ago, it also sounded pretty crazy to say a bunch of politicians and celebrities are having sex on a secret pedophile island. Or there's a virus coming from China that's going to infect the whole world. Or UFOs are real and the government knows it. Still not talking about this. Anyway, what I'm saying is, if you're not concerned with how racism has desecrated generations of black people, at least be careful saying that people beneath you deserve what happens to them, because someday you might be in their position and you might be treated unfairly, and then you'll know how important it is to lift someone when you're up and they're down, so they'll do the same for you. Stay as safe as you can, but if the riots work, riot. If the politicians want you to stop, they can by satisfying some demands. I'd also suggest implementing ranked choice voting so politicians outside of the red team, blue team duopoly can have a chance. And finally, go after the advertisers. Seeing things start to bend, Gushers just took a knee. Americans have worked themselves to the bone for decades, so these corporations can what? Get 10 times the bailout money we do in a time of crisis? No. You start fucking with the money that goes into the politicians' pockets, and they'll start solving some of these tough issues real quick. Oh, and one other thing. Make them be specific. No kneeling than cutting 36 million people's healthcare, Nancy. Anyway, thanks for checking out a great first season, trying to make some sense out of a very complicated world. We'll be spending the next few months figuring out ways to distribute the show on a wider scale, and also just ways to make it better. If you'd like to get involved in any way, just shoot an email to theactualnewscast@gmail.com, and other than that, burn it all down, audit the Fed, Black Lives Matter. Thanks, guys.
You can't make a lasting peace this way. You got all the bad guys scared, and that's good. But the minute they're not scared anymore, it will get worse than it was before. Fear does not make lasting peace. Ask black people. And that's what it is. What this city really needs, without irony, I'll say this, the cure for LA is in South Africa. You motherfuckers need truth and reconciliation with one another. Because the end of apartheid should have been a fucking bloodbath by any metric in human history, and it wasn't. And the only reason it wasn't is because Desmond Tutu and Mandela and all these guys figured out that if a system is corrupt, then the people who adhere to the system and are incentivized by that system are not criminals. They are victims. And that the system itself must be tried. But because how systems work is so compartmentalized as far as information, the only way we can figure out what the system is if everybody says what they did.
At heart, I'm an ocean kid. I don't want to talk politics.